And you're on.
Okay, late night from Willowdale. Of course, we're doing this in the afternoon. Um, so we'll go through a bunch of topics really quick. So first, most topical is uh, the Trump administration slapping tariffs on aluminum and steel, Canada, Mexico, the European Union. Why Trump would do this? Why Trump would screw his closest allies is just not rational. It's surreal. It's surreal. He does these crazy things to keep his small base of supporters happy, even though a lot of those supporters will not benefit from these measures. These tariffs are going to hurt American workers as just as much as they're going to hurt Mexican, Canadian, and European workers. They're not rational. They're not based on facts. They're not, especially when he says he does it for national security concerns. Even though, as you know, Prime Minister Trudeau has said, a lot of steel and aluminum used in American defense products come from Canada. Canada's been supplying the metals for the U.S. defense industry since the Second World War. So obviously Canada is hardly a security threat. But this is, of course, this is just not. These policies that Trump enacts are not rational. They're not based on rationality. They're based on an impulsive, unstable American president who promised during the campaign promised certain things to his base that he would do them, even though they're not based on facts. So he promised to his base he'd get out of the Iran deal. He promised to his base that he'd get out of the Paris Climate Accord. And he promised to his base that he'd get tough on trade, even though starting a trade war with Canada and Europe and Mexico and with China, Japan, South Korea, it doesn't benefit anybody. And it's certainly not going to benefit American workers. So it's bully tactics. I've often said that the G7 is coming up next week in Quebec. I think Trump should be disinvited. I think he should be kicked out of the G7. We kicked Russia out of what was then the G8 for misbehaving on the world stage. So I think that we should kick Trump out of the G7. I really think the world has got to take a stand against Trump and his irrational policies. The United States has become a rogue nation, totally up. And I know that seems like a cliche. The rules-based international system, but there were things put in place after the Second World War, including the creation of United Europe and eventually the European Union and the World Trade Organization. Yes, I can see there are negatives on trade and stuff like that. There are, but a lot of things were put in order to have a stable world system. Yes, and I know it doesn't benefit everybody, and free trade agreements don't benefit everybody, but trade benefits the global economy. Open trade benefits the global economy, and it keeps countries from going to war. I mean, if you're trading with a country, you're not going to go to war with it. And a system was put in place after the end of the Second World War to prevent reoccurring wars, the devastating wars of the 20th century. And obviously that wasn't that totally, that there have been lots of wars, but basically amongst many countries, there's been stability, Western Europe, North America, the Far East, and it's based on a rules-based system, whether it's done through the World Trade Organization when it comes to trade, there have been defense agreements. Yeah, I know nothing's perfect, and I'm not going to even get into some of the negatives. But what I'm trying to say here is Trump is upending it and is going to cause lots of chaos, and it's to nobody's benefit. And these tariffs, starting a trade war, is to nobody's benefit. Everybody loses. And we know from what happened in the 1930s when trade barriers were put up, led to depression, led to economic chaos. So I could bramble on about this, but I think Canada and its allies need to unite and take a tough stand with the Trump administration. And I think of what Canada could do right away is just tell Trump he's not invited to the G7 next week. He probably doesn't want to go anyways, but he hates these sort of meetings. But
Mar-a-Lago, I guess.
He would send a message that we're not to be bullied. And yeah, Canada does have few options, We have lots of natural resources, and the Americans need our metals, okay? They need our lumber for their houses, they need our metals for their industry. The Americans just don't have enough. They need our oil, they still need our oil. So, we do have cards to play. So, anyways, I've rambled on this one. Basically what I'm saying is what he's done is irrational, it's not based on fact. And of course, using national security is so laughable; it's beyond the pale. And it's like what Trump does so often. He appeals to his small base of supporters because he made these campaign promises. And of course, a lot of his supporters will not benefit because they're going to get hurt by these tariffs too. And certainly in the heartland of the U.S., people supported Trump. If countries start putting up tariffs on U.S. agricultural products, there's going to be a lot of discontent, dislocation in the American heartland. Okay, so let's move on to quickly, and of course, the laughable thing here is, like today, and they're trying to set up a meeting with North Korea. Trump so wants a little foreign policy. Trump is so weird, On one hand, he's upending alliances and doing all these things, getting out of the Iran deal, and now he wants to have a deal with North Korea, just have a photo op in Singapore. And he's allowing people into the United States, like this guy he's allowed in, this intelligence chief from North Korea, is a real thug, a real nasty piece of work. The Americans, he's even been sanctioned by the United States, but Trump has allowed him in because he so wants a deal with North Korea. And because he wants this cheap foreign policy victory. And it's irrational because, no one knows where it's going to go. Don't get me wrong, I think meeting with Kim Jong-un is fine. Anything that relieves tension on the Korean Peninsula is a good thing. But how can you have a North Korean nuclear deal when you walk away with a really good deal with Iran? It just doesn't make sense. Anyways, that whole thing that's irrational in itself. Let's move on to domestic issues quickly. I'm glad Trudeau's sticking with the pipeline, the Kinder Morgan, Trans Mountain. One expansion of this pipeline, I don't think is a big deal. I think environmentalists have gone way over the top on this one. I'm glad Trudeau is sticking to the pipeline, trying to get that pipeline built. This was a smart move on his part. He'll lose some votes in British Columbia, but he might gain some. It doesn't matter. This is an important thing to get the expansion of this pipeline done, to get Canadian oil to the west, to expand, to get more Canadian oil to the West Coast. And I think one expansion of one pipeline isn't going to end the world. So I'm glad this. If Trudeau doesn't get this pipeline built or get it started before the next election, he might lose that election. This is a sort of just watch me moment. Remember that from his dad, just watch me? This is a just watch me moment in domestic politics. So this is Trudeau's. I'm glad that Trudeau is being tough on this one, and I'm hopefully that pipeline will get built. It should get built. And that moves me to and this might have saved his government, by the way, because people finally see a little spine here. Just as it did yesterday when Trump was announcing retaliatory tariffs on the United States. So that was good as well. Now, the election. Okay. Ontario election. This time next Friday, we'll know. I think the Win Liberals are doing better. I don't trust the polls. You never know what's going to happen, right? Remember with Hillary Clinton. So, I don't think, I've said this before, Hillary Clinton, yeah, Kathleen Wynne, Hillary Clinton, I see them in many ways the same. Although Kathleen Wynne did win a majority government. The disdain and hatred, scorn that is heaped upon Kathleen Wynne is not deserved. It's just not deserved. It's not rational. I think her government Liberal government has many accomplishments, and she should be proud of them. And as some commentators said, we've been lucky to have her as premier. I think she's done a great job, and in many ways, she's sort of the modern day Bill Davis, and I hope she's reelected. I know it's still an uphill battle, but I hope she is. And I think what happens, and this is where I'll end the video. What happens? It's with narrative. A narrative is a very important word because you create a false narrative. So there's been this false narrative, negative narrative around Kathleen Wynne, that she's incompetent, that that she's corrupt, all sorts of things. And it's not true. It's not true at all. You know, false narratives were created around Hillary Clinton, right? Clinton was corrupt, mean-spirited, whatever. Not true. The famous false narrative is around Bob Rae. You know, he ran a failed government. God, you hear that repeated endlessly. Conservative commercials are so disgusting. Just say, oh, Bob Rae basically destroyed Ontario. Not true. People need to look at the facts, not with the polls. There's, the polls, history, the media, misleading election ads. You got to look at the facts and not get caught up in a lot of what you hear or hearsay, or for instance, the conservative commercials have young kids saying, "Well, my parents said Bob Rae destroyed Ontario." Basically, I mean, that's just so horrible. Look at the facts, man, just the facts, and stop looking at false narratives. And of course, at south of the border, we see Trump saying, well, like 3,000 misleading statements since his presidency. And the more you tell a lie, the more people, the more you tell a lie, eventually people start to believe the lie. People need to look at the facts, just the facts. And on next Thursday, I hope Kathleen Wynne forms government again, even a minority government. And I wish people just examine the facts before they vote. Look at her accomplishments, look at what she's done, look at what the Conservatives are offering, or look what the NDP is offering. I have to admit, I'm not impressed by Andrea Horwath. I forget about Doug Ford. I'm not impressed by Andrea Horwath or the NDP. I think there's only one person in the game, and that's Kathleen Wynne and the Liberals. And that's where we're going to end this video.